BBC Radio Berkshire with Andrew Peach. Well, we've been on the air this morning then. We've got this new website, heathrowconsultation.com, where you can type your postcode in. It will tell you whether you're at risk of being under the new flight paths as they change the flight paths, ready for the airport to expand, ready for the third runway. There'll be winners and losers, I've been hearing from Heathrow director Emma Gilthorpe.
We want to hear people's feedback on what may be, for example, the special local factors we should take into account if planes were to fly in those geographic areas. And it's really important that we give people the opportunity to shape how we route those flight paths in future.
So, I mean, for people who are under the flight path, they'd just like it not to get any louder and possibly to get quieter. That seems unlikely when you're talking about thousands more flights a year. The people at real risk here who really need to try and take part are people who are not currently experiencing aircraft noise at all. People like those who live in Bracknell and suddenly, when you experimented in the past with changing flight paths, had a load of aircraft noise that they'd never had before.
So you are right to say that there will always be winners and losers when it comes to aircraft noise. We are wanting to guarantee periods of respite to all of our communities, whether they're close into the airport or whether they're further away in areas like Bracknell, because if those areas are to have flights introduced overhead, then we want to make sure that they have guaranteed periods where there won't be flights there as well. It's really important that we get people's views, as I say, on the local factors that they want us to take into account, because, you know, there are some big positive changes that are coming from this as well. As I said, we stand by our promise to introduce a scheduled ban on night flights when we introduce a third runway at Heathrow. We want to, end the stacking that happens over some communities nearer to Heathrow. So in order to do that, we need to design really efficient airspace, so that when flight paths do go over people's homes, they do so in the most efficient and, of course, the quietest route.
If you live in Slough or Windsor, you already have a lot of plane noise. If you live somewhere like Bracknell or Wokingham or Reading or Henley, you know, people a little bit further away, are we saying that those people might now get plane noise with planes in and out of Heathrow?
There will inevitably be winners and losers at different places around the airport, which is why guaranteed respite and our commitment to that is so important. But this is the second of 3 stages of consultation. This is starting to narrow the geographic areas that we think may be affected, and it won't be until the 3rd stage of consultation that you will have precise knowledge. But that is why it is so important that at this stage we get people's feedback, because it will impact ultimately where those flight paths might end up.
OK, so that's Emma Gilthorpe, Director of Expansion at Heathrow. Here's what you're saying. David Hendy says, Peachy, I've tried again using my iMac with the latest Safari and now the website works. All I get with my Henley postcode is your postcode is within an area where flight paths may be positioned in the future. But we're already under the holding circle pattern when they're coming in from this side. I mean, from what Emma was saying, there ought to be less holding, isn't there, under these new arrangements. But thank you very much indeed for that. Gary says this public consultation is nothing more than a PR exercise. At the end of the day, they'll just do what's best for them, not for everyone else. All right, we've got John in Windsor, Sunita in Datchet. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you could be the winner here, John, we think. We reckon that actually Windsor, because there'll be a proper break and whatever, might get fewer planes over than it does now.
Well, that would be very welcome, Andrew, but what we're missing is the fact that this proposal is accompanied by the idea or the proposal that there should be 25,000 more flights.
Yes.
Now, as you know...
that's a year, by the way, not per day. But
yes,
25,000
right.
per year, it's about 60 per day.
And as you know, for the third runway, there'll be 260,000 more flights. That's 10 times as many. And I think what's being missed at the moment, and it'll come out, of course, is the pollution. The air noise pollution, of course, is very clear, but the air pollution is the real killer. 40,000 people a year in the UK dying unnecessarily. And
well, they of course will say, I know what the aviation industry will say. If they were here, they'll say, yeah, but in the way that planes make so much less noise, they're also much less polluting than they would have been if you were talking about planes in the past.
They deliver a quarter of the total pollution from transport at the moment. That's the government's own figures. And this is obviously going to get worse if there are more flights.
So, as far as you're concerned, there's no good news. If there's a respite, if the flights come over Windsor a bit later in the morning, if there's a break, then great. But actually, overall, it's still Heathrow expanding and causing more problems.
You're right in that the reduction in flights over Heathrow is, of course, immensely welcome. Anybody coming to the town when the planes are going overhead knows the noise is horrendous. But we mustn't miss the fact that the air pollution is a killer. And what we need is to actually remove the flights away from Heathrow. Fat chance of that, I know. But that's the real solution to this problem. And noise is going to be very much in the frame at the moment. But don't forget the air pollution issues.
All right, John, thank